Thinking about moving to Philadelphia? Well, here are 10 things you need to know about before you move here. And let's not waste any more time. Let's get started right away with number 10, which is probably the most important one, which is pick the right neighborhood. And this is really what people miss a lot when they move here. In fact, some of the people that are living here miss this. And that's really that, the neighborhood name that you see on Zillow, Realtor.com might not be the actual neighborhood you want to be in. And in fact, it varies very, very much when it comes to moving here. I always say, you want to think about zip code, neighborhood, street, and block. And that's really what it boils down to when it comes to Philadelphia. Just because one block is amazing, 2 blocks over might be terrible. I tell this story all the time. My mom used to live in South Philly. She lived in 3rd and Durford, which is basically 2 blocks from Oregon Avenue. 2 blocks over, 5th and Durford. You didn't want to really live there. So just because that same street is great doesn't mean the block is great, because they can feel totally different in the same city. In fact, it could feel like you live in totally different cities when it comes to these blocks. What you got to keep an eye on is that, you might want to look out for the noise that happens, the people that are sitting on the stoop, hanging out on the street corners. If there's regular police activity, that is very important. In fact, I tell people all the time, if they're thinking about moving here, after we check out the neighborhood, the block they want to be in, don't be afraid to call the police district and say, hey, I'm thinking about moving to this street, this block, this area. What do you think about it, Mr. Officer or Mrs. Officer, if that's who you're talking to? So you got to remember that. Historically, just because there's a beautiful row home might not mean it's in a beautiful block. Might not mean it's beautiful neighborhood or beautiful zip code. People figure out really quickly when they move here without doing the research, they might have chosen the wrong block. Now, there are areas, certain neighborhoods that you could choose over other neighborhoods, such as Chestnut Hill, Port Richmond, Fishtown, Fiddler Square, University City. The list goes on. And obviously, there's a long list of that. And if you're thinking about moving here, what are you going to do? Before you even pick your neighborhood, you're going to pick up the phone, send me a little email, and let me know how I can help you. Reach out to me. Say, hey, Chris, I'm thinking about moving here. Perfect. I'm going to send you my little Philly guide. Gives you a breakdown of what to do and what not to do, because it's extremely important to know where to move. That is probably the number one mistake people make when they move here. They pick the wrong neighborhood. They picked the wrong block, picked the wrong street. They did everything wrong because you know why? Because they didn't reach out to this guy. But that's not what's main important. Main important is obviously where to live. That's really what it comes down to. Some newcomers will say, hey, this price looks amazing, but they don't realize it might be parts of North Philly, parts of West Philly that you don't want to be there. So you feel like the city failed you. No, I hate to break it to you. You failed yourself. That's why it's important to know what you're doing, where you're going, what you're looking. The price tag might be amazing, but the neighborhood might not be that amazing. Pay attention to lighting. Pay attention to foot traffic. Pay attention to what's going on. I tell my people all the time, when we go out look at houses, when you go have dinner later that evening, drive through the blocks that we looked about. Drive through the neighborhood, the street. Drive past the house that you were thinking about buying. Because remember, this might be the biggest, choice you make. You don't want to mess it up. Now, before we move on to the next thing, you remember that saying, more money, more problems. Well, here's kind of what it comes down to that. More taxes, more problems. That's for sure. You got a number 9, which is know your paycheck. Now, people don't realize when they move here, we have a city wage tax. So if you live in the city of Philadelphia and you work in the city of Philadelphia, you will pay about 3.75% in city wage tax. And on top of that, you'll pay a Pennsylvania tax of 3.07. Now, I'm not even talking about real estate taxes that comes with buying the house and the transfer tax that comes with that. I'm just talking about living here and working here. That's why a lot of people actually, if they work in Center City, they live outside the city because they pay a little bit less in city wage tax. But you need to know about that city wage tax, because if you don't, and when you move here, like I did in 1999, didn't know anything about the city wage tax, and I got my first paycheck, my first real paycheck, and I looked at it and went, what is this garbage? They will smack you pretty hard when it comes to taxes in the city of Philadelphia. Is it still cheaper than living in New York City, Boston? Yes, it is. But people forget sometimes there is something coming, a little caveat comes with those cheap prices. When that first paycheck, like I said, hits you, you go, oh, this is kind of scary. This is why you got to remember where you live and where you work is very important. You'll still save tons of money living in Philadelphia compared to the other big cities like DC, New York City, Boston, Los Angeles, and so on and so forth. But you got to remember, things could get very costly very quickly. Which brings me to the next thing. To car or not to car? That is thy question. Yes, I'm doing a little Shakespeare, GRISWOLD style. What do I mean? Number 8, decide on a car early. If you're moving here, relocating here, or in fact, if you're living here, do you really want to keep your car? Well, depends on the neighborhood. Again, depends on the block. If you're living in Center City, if that's where you're going to live, South Philly, Center City, University City, even parts of West Philly, Roxborough, Manayunk, some of these great neighborhoods I'm mentioning, you got to decide to car or not to car. That is the question. And I have the answer for you. Well, you got to decide for yourself, because I'm telling you, I've lived in South Philly for a few years, and it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare to park, because you leave for go to work with your car. By the time you come back, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, that parking spot in front of your house that you so gracefully and very expertly were able to get a hold of when you came home last time is no longer there. In fact, you're probably parking about 3 blocks away from where you live. And then you have to understand, again, goes back to what I said before, depending on your neighborhood and your block, you don't want to park in the wrong block with your car, because God knows the car might not be there next time. So it's very important. So you got to decide, car or not the car. Now, if you're not going to use a car, well, there's a great solution for that. Which brings us to the next one. Number 7, SEPTA. What is SEPTA? I've never heard of that thing. What is that? Well, keep in mind, SEPTA is actually what we use here for trains, subway, regional rail, trolleys, and buses. That's what we use here. Now, the good thing with SEPTA, you can get a monthly pass for less than $100, which is amazing, dirt cheap, but already probably less than your car insurance a month, because you're probably living in Center City or in Philadelphia in general. Your car insurance is going to be very high compared to not having one, having a bus pass. But you also got to remember with SEPTA, it is very tricky. And if you're not used to using the bus system or the trolley system, anything like that, you might definitely want to check it out before you buy a house. Take a ride. If you come down here on the weekends, you're going to set it up where you're going to reach out to me, because you're going to be like, hey, I'm thinking about moving to Philadelphia. I'm moving from so-and-so town and so-and-so state. And I heard you're the guy to talk to. And I go, yes, I am. Give me a call, send me a text. Reach out to me. I'll be happy to point you in the right direction, help you like I've helped hundreds of other people. But in the meantime, I'm also going to let you know when we look at houses on a Saturday, not only drive by the neighborhood, if you're staying overnight, maybe on a Sunday, catch a bus, catch a train. Keep in mind, if you're coming from a big city like New York City, SEPTA's not as good as in New York Transit over there, I can tell you that. I know you're complaining a lot about where you live and the subway system, but Philly is not the greatest, but it's still better than fighting over a parking spot. I can tell you that. Weekend schedules here are a little low, or kind of sad when it comes to that. But also remember too, we do have Uber, we do have Lyft, we do have car share programs. We have also the Indigo bike system if you want to do that. So a lot of people when they move here, if they don't use SEPTA, guess what they do? They walk, or they ride their bike, or ride a skateboard. I don't know many people that do that, but they do. Now, what makes people different? Some buyers are smarter than others. Well, that brings us to number 6. Inspect the housing, not the listing. I get a lot of phone calls. Hey, Chris, I saw this amazing house. It's only $175,000 and it looks beautiful. It's updated. And I might turn to you and go, well, we might want to check out the neighborhood. But also remember, just because the house looks great on pictures doesn't mean that you shouldn't get a home inspection. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, the market went crazy and prices went crazy. A lot of people went crazy and decided to say, hey, I am waiving the home inspection. And it's like, wait, why? Well, because I want to be competitive. Well, thankfully for us, that has started to change and more people are getting home inspections. In fact, a lot of my Philly buyers are getting home inspections accepted, getting repairs, or in fact, not only getting repairs, maybe also getting credit, or some of them are getting both, repairs and credits. That is happening a lot more in Philadelphia. So just because it looks great on paper doesn't mean it is. We have a lot of older homes here. Some of these homes are built in the 1960s all the way down to the 1880s. Some of these homes are over 100 years old. What does that mean? Get it inspected. The electrical might be garbage. The windows might be garbage. So why is that important? Well, because if the windows aren't the greatest and the house is old, the heating bill is going to go up. And so is the water bill. And so is the central air bill. So these are absolutely things that will be added on to when it comes to prices. And you might think to yourself, well, why does that matter? Well, it does, but I'm going to tell you why in a little bit. Make sure you hang in there. But first, we're going to talk about schools. Go right into number 5. Well, school isn't important to me. I don't have kids. Well, just because you don't have kids yet doesn't mean that the school area you're picking isn't important. Remember, Philadelphia School District is a huge school district, and overall, it's not the greatest. So now if you do have kids, or maybe you have kids some down the roads, you might think to yourself, now what do I do? School quality, like I said, varies in Philadelphia. It varies a lot. Now, better the school, the higher the housing prices. Just remember that. They coordinate. Better schools, higher prices. What happens is that some of these schools have poor funding, high turnover, so the school quality isn't the best. So if schools are important to you, you might want to check out, before you even check out a neighborhood, check out a school that ranks highly, and then start looking into that area. But the issue becomes not so much the neighborhood, the zip code neighborhood of the block. Now you have to focus on school catchment. What do you mean? Well, if you're in a specific catchment, your little Tyler is going to be able to go to that school as long as you buy a house in there. But if you're right across the street in a different catchment, poor little Tyler might not be going to the school that you want, and you have to remember that. Now, also understand a lot of families that move here, especially if they have no kids or getting kids and the kids start getting older, eventually leave Philadelphia and go to the suburbs. Not because they want to, because they might have fallen in love with the area, the neighborhood, the neighbors, the house. But the school thing has becomes such a big issue, they might move out to the suburbs, which have different school districts. There's a lot more better school districts outside of Philadelphia. Remember that. Now he's thinking. Now you're thinking. Now, which is going to bring us to another thing that's very important. And you might come to me and go, crime is very high in Philadelphia. Well, brings us to number 4. Crime is local, not quite citywide. This is where context matters. And this is where your due diligence matters the most. Citywide crime has dropped since 2021, 2022. And why is that? Well, because we had a mayor he was awful. I'm not going to mention his name, but he was terrible. We now have a new mayor, Mayor Parker, Miss Sherelle Parker, and she's actually kicking you know what. And crime has started to drop. Does that mean we don't have crime in the city of Philadelphia? Well, of course we do. We are the 6th largest city in the United States. So of course we have crime. But contextually, this is what matters, is your neighborhood. Because it's not evenly distributed when it comes to crime. Some areas, some neighborhoods, some streets, some blocks, some zip codes have a lot more shootouts, carjackings, burglaries, robberies, you name it, they have it. Other neighborhoods, such as Chestnut Hill, University City, they do still have crime. Parts of South Philly, the list goes on and on and on. There are neighborhoods, zip codes, blocks that do have very little crime compared to others. So you got to look for patterns. Remember in the beginning of the video, I said, hey, don't be afraid to pick up that phone and call the police district and see what they think and what they say, because they'll be very honest with you and tell you yes or no. Again, due diligence. Just because you live on one block, it's nice and clean and great. That's great, low crime. 3 blocks over, totally different story. The city will reward you if you do your homework and do your diligence. Now, what's going to remember too, not only is crime important, but these other expenses I talked about before, which brings us to number 3, budget for unusual stuff. And I always tell people, budget for a parking ticket. You don't have to, but you're going to get one. It's kind of like a rite of passage to getting a parking ticket. In fact, you might get 2 or 3 parking tickets, and they're usually anywhere from $32 to $132, because we live in Philadelphia. When you look at the street signs, the parking signs, there's usually big old pole, 3 different signs, and sometimes it's like reading Latin. You have no idea what they're talking about, but you have to remember, heating bills in older homes is higher. The central air is higher. What do you mean central air is higher? Well, some of these old homes, circulation is terrible when it comes to central air. The first floor will be really cool with your central air. In fact, it might be freezing, but the second floor circulates is not as good. So next thing you know, you might actually have a window unit. And you go, wait, what? Yes, not only might you have central air, but you also might have a window unit because the circulation on the second floor isn't the greatest, that you want to be cool when you sleep at night, and you want to be running fans that really aren't helping that much, so you end up getting a small little window unit for your bedroom because you want to be nice and cool and not be sweating when it's 95 degrees out there in July. So remember, your electric bill might be high because of that. And your parking and your water, that all adds up. Just because you have a parking permit doesn't mean you're not going to get a parking ticket. I can promise you that. And you got to remember too, again, going back to what I said before, car or no car. You remember too, not only you might have parking tickets, but you also might have to pay for a parking garage, which can cost anywhere from $250 to $400 or $500 a month. Again, car or not the car. You got to know these costs and plan for these costs, and keep in mind, incidentals will happen. Now, what happens is that, what do smart people do? Well, they learn, when they move here, they learn, which brings us to number 2, learn how people live here. This is where newcomers sometimes fail. They don't embrace the Philadelphia people, embrace the lifestyle. Philadelphia people, Philly people can be mostly are very rough on the exterior. But once they see you continuously, repeatedly, and they recognize your face, that exterior melts a little bit, and they're a little more helping and forthcoming and more pleasant to deal with. They remember patterns. If you're loud 2 a.m. in the morning, they're gonna remember that. If you put a cone in front of your house, even though it hasn't snowed, and you still put a cone in front of your house because you want that parking spot, people will remember that. And Philadelphia people are kind of like elephants. They don't forget. So you have to remember that. Also remember, like for example, if it did snow, like it did a couple weeks ago, if you don't shovel your street, your sidewalk, and your stairs, they're gonna remember that too. And you're gonna be known as that pesky neighbor that no one wants to talk to. You gotta keep in mind, some of these neighborhoods, some of these blocks have block captains. Don't piss off the block captain. Be nice with the block captain. You see him, say good morning or say, what's up? A lot of people say that here. It's a thing. What's up? That's basically, hey, good morning, hi, how are you? It's the same thing. Be pleasant, be nice, and they will start keeping an eye out for you, your house, even your Amazon packages, they'll keep an eye out for you. Philly will reward you if you go with the program. Now you might go, number 1. Well, what's so important about number 1? We finally get to here. Like I said before, really number 10 is number 1, but you gotta understand here, when you move here, it's very important to know your next step. Keeping that in the back of your head, which brings us to absolutely number 1. This detail makes a big difference, knowing your next step, because people might go, hey, what are you talking about? What I mean about, some people come here for school. We have over 30 plus 4-year colleges. So some people come here for school and they end up staying here. And they learn while they're in school that, hey, might be my next step is staying in Philadelphia, and end up staying here, end up buying a house. And of course, if you're buying a house or selling a house, you're gonna reach out to this guy. Remember that, subscribe. You gotta keep that in your mind. You gotta know, some people move here with small kids, some people move here with no kids, and they realize like, hey, this is amazing, like I said, but this might not be for us. If you're moving from a 1-bedroom, 600 square foot apartment to you're buying a 1,200 square foot row home, you're gonna realize in a couple of years, the bigger the house, the more stuff you have. The more stuff you have, it means this row home isn't quite for me, and it's getting too small. So either you can do one or two things, call me and say, hey, it's time to move, or obviously you declutter. But a lot of people don't declutter. So this is why what happens is Philadelphia a lot of times is a stepping stone to the next part where I talked about, remember I talked about schools. Well, Philadelphia a lot of times are great for first-time home buyers, but when life situations happen, when relationships end, relationships are created and then expanded, people realize that, you know what, maybe it's time to move to the suburbs. Maybe it's time to, I want to work in Center City, but I don't want the Center City life. I might move to Conshohocken, or I might move to Ardmore for better work-life balance, or Media because they have amazing schools, or Bensalem because it's close to 95. A lot of times when you live in Philadelphia, when you move here from another city, another state, is just a stepping stone. Remember that. Either way, I want to thank you so much for coming to my channel. Make sure you check out my other videos, and I'll definitely see you on the next one.